Officer for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3, currently assigned to the Dixie Fire. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Dixie Fire West Zone Community Briefing for August 18th, 2021. If you have any questions for our speakers this evening, please submit them in the comments section below, and we will address them after our speaker presentations. First, currently across California, despite extreme weather and unfavorable weather conditions, 10,000 federal, state, tribal, and local firefighters are assigned to 12 active large wildfires in the state. Since January 1st, more than 1.3 million acres have burned this year. That's an increase of 441,000 acres versus the same time frame last year. Turning to the Dixie Fire, we currently sit at 662,647 acres and are 34% contained. This is day 35 of the firefight. The fire remains the second largest and 14th most destructive fire in California history. Battling this fire are numerous ground and air resources that include 5,982 personnel, 503 fire engines, 202 dozers, 85 crews, and 20 helicopters. 5 counties in Northern California have been impacted by this fire, including Butte, Tehama, Plumas, Lassen, and Shasta. There are over 28,000 residents currently under evacuation orders or warnings. Of those, 367 evacuees are currently staying in 4 temporary shelters around the fire. Damage inspectors are currently evaluating properties around the burn area and performing damage assessments. In Plumas, we've had 1,147 structures destroyed, 76 damaged, and I'm happy to report that 1,542 have shown no damage and have been saved. In Lassen, we've had 47 structures destroyed, 6 damaged, and 70 with no damage. In Tehama, 30 have been destroyed, 5 have been damaged, and 62 have shown no signs of damage. Overall for the Dixie Fire, 1,224 structures have been destroyed, 87 have been damaged, and once again, I'm happy to report that 1,674 have shown no damage and have been saved. It's important to remember that these inspections are ongoing and the numbers are subject to change. Finally, we are asking for your help. When an evacuation is issued for your area, do not hesitate. Help us by taking yourself out of harm's way so we can focus on fighting the fire. Now is the time to be ready. Do not wait until it's too late. Please visit readyforwildfire.org for detailed information on how you can keep you and your family safe. Now with an update on the weather forecast for over the fire, I'd like to introduce our incident meteorologist, Joseph Goudsward.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly was glad to see the sun today. It's been a very long time since we've scouted out enough smoke to actually see the sun. It's all because of that cold front that went through yesterday. We saw those strong southwest winds turn around to the northwest and then the northeast, and when we got those northeast winds, it pushed all the smoke out of here and brought us a rather pleasant day. Temperatures were a bit on the cool side, but we were able to see lots of blue sky and those northwest winds continuing. However, those northeast winds are going to be in place once again tonight and tomorrow. They are going to be a little bit elevated, so we're looking at winds probably in the 10 to 20 mile an hour range. And as we heat up tomorrow afternoon, we'll probably see those kick up to around 30 miles an hour, especially on the ridge tops and in those areas that are usually prone to seeing those stronger winds where they kind of line up with the prevailing topography. So all in all, a fairly breezy day coming up tomorrow, but no other real major issues are seen. And that's good, because we're going to see our winds kick around to the southwest again on Friday. We're not looking at any major events or anything like that, but the winds will probably come up again on Saturday, maybe in that 15 to 30 mile an hour range. So, brief summary, another breezy day tomorrow out of the northeast, so we should see a decent amount of sunshine, and then we go back to those southwest winds, and again, they could come up a little bit on Saturday. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce our fire behavior analyst, Brian Newman.
Okay, good evening. So I'm going to take you around the map here on the fire and show you really what we're expecting with the current and expected fire behavior over the next day or so. So starting down here in the Butte sector, in the southwest portion of the fire, it continues to hold well in its current state. Our infrared sensors are not showing any major heat in there, just some interior pockets of smoldering and continued heavy fuels burning out as expected. And that's going to continue on for now with no threats to the control lines there. Moving north up into what we call the Lake Branch, which is west of Lake Almanor, along the Highway 36 corridor. We're still showing some heat in there. We're still showing some activity, but again, it is well interior, with no threats to the control line at this point, and the crews continue to keep working those hot spots. Moving north of 36 up into the Westwood sector into Plumas County, this is where we're starting to see more heat in here. The fire progressed today from the north to the south underneath those winds that we saw, and it is challenging the lines in some of those places there, and primarily just because of the heavy fuels that are in there, very dry conditions, and rugged topography that's allowing the winds to days. And so again, the fire is progressing, but it is progressing against the wind as it is just because of the really steep topography, really heavy fuels, a lot of heat being generated in there, and it continues to move at a steady rate, but not really any major runs moving north. Coming around the north part of the fire and the northern part of the Lassen sector, because of this north wind that we're experiencing, all the heat that's up in here between the park and over to the 821 road is really being pushed back into the main part of the fire. So there is quite a bit of heat in there, and then we did have a bit of activity as that wind came up today and cleared that smoke out. But again, it pushed it back into the main part of the fire, and we expect that to continue over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours as we retain this same wind pattern that we've been in. Coming down the 821 road towards the community of Westwood, and we did have some activity in there from the residual heat from all the operations that have gone on in there in the last few days. But again, that's not necessarily challenging the lines per se. It is standing up and getting some column activity in there, but all the crews are able to maintain their stance there along Highway 36. And so I expect that to continue again tomorrow as that interior heat continues to burn out, being fed by the wind coming out of the north. Coming across into our Susanville branch, we had that little run of a fire a couple days ago due to the south winds that pushed it in towards the community of Susanville. But because of that wind shift that we started experiencing last night and today, it's pushing it back on itself here. And so it's kind of put this section of the fire in check in regards to that eastern spread, and has pushed it back to the west again. So we have had some activity in here on Hamilton Mountain. We've seen quite a bit of activity in there today overall, just because of the wind being funneled through that highway corridor up into that steep topography with the heavy fuels that have been burning in there. We expect that to continue tomorrow. There are operations going on in there to take effect with that and help control that tonight. But we expect large columns to come off that again tomorrow. But generally, that's within our plan of what is going on, and we've built our strategy for that. Coming down further into the southeastern part of the fire, into the Taylorsville area, again, we're seeing that activity from that northeast push, and that fire is progressing to the southwest out there in the Antelope Lake area. And on top of that, going a little bit further east out into the Janesville area where we did have that spot fire a couple of days ago from that wind, that fire is progressing to the south and west as well. It's gone over the escarpment. And I think by the end of tonight or early tomorrow morning, these two fires are actually going to grow together. So this Janesville spot will have reached the main fire over here to the east of Antelope Lake. It also continues to progress to the southeast, just primarily due to the topography of the escarpment. It's pushing the fire to the southeast along in here. The crews are being successful holding their own in regards to the structured defense in there, but I think that's going to keep going tomorrow as this goes along until they can find a good spot there to square it off. So overall, tomorrow we expect some continued activity, much like we saw today, primarily due to that northeast winds that we experienced. We did clear that smoke out, but it did allow the fire activity to pick up. So we will expect that to continue again tomorrow and move forward into the weekend with that slight change in weather.
Thank you, Chief Newman. Our next speaker will be Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Good evening. So we had some activity on the fire today, as Chief Newman has already spoken to regarding some of the during his fire behavior analyst discussion. So I'll hit some of the highlights with that and what we're going to be doing moving forward in the next shift. So again, our Butte sector is in a patrol status. That's looking really good. No changes within that. We've got our Westwood sector, which is the middle part of the fire, everything south of 36. Continuing work within the communities, Chester and the west shore of the lake, and having a lot of success with that. And as far as just getting prepared for when repopulation occurs and when that does occur, that we'll be prepared for calls for service for any nuisance smokes and so forth of that nature when people repopulate. East side of the lake's looking really good. No effects of fire there. We've sealed up with a burn operation on Highway 36 yesterday, and that sealed any sort of incursion of fire from the north. And then working with the east zone, they've finished up around Dyer Mountain, and that closes the door from any fire coming from the south. So communities of the peninsula, Westwood, Hamilton Branch are all looking very good regarding the fire. Moving further east, the Duffy Group has been working around the community of Susanville. As Brian was saying, the fire that moved from the other day towards Susanville, it did lay down. We were able to go direct on a lot of that. However, some of the heat is still established. And with the coming weather, we do have some concerns that could end up pushing north in a couple days. So one of the things that we're preparing for this evening and we're going to start conducting is a burn operation along Highway 36 to tie that in and cut that off from any sort of turn and of the fire and it burning in the northerly direction. We have weather conditions that are going to be suitable for today and tomorrow before that wind event comes. So we want to make sure we take advantage of that opportunity so we don't lose what we've gained there. Moving over to the Janesville branch. So the Janesville branch has been one that we've been preparing for a number of days. We did have the incursion of the fire from the spot fire a couple days ago. That has burned, and a couple days ago, burned across 395. Did burn around some of the structures. We were able to do a lot of defensive tactics to protect those structures and just kind of herd the fire away from the structures and further south down the 395 corridor. So we are looking at opportunities where we can pick that up, the fuel changes and such that it's more conducive to our fire suppression tactics. We are continuing to provide protection within the community of Janesville proper, and that the coming days with the weather conditions and such, we're going to continue that stance. For our Lassen sector, which is north of 36, the big story here is from the lightning strike of a few days ago along 89 to 36 corridor, and then Morgan Camp. That area has been very active. A lot of heavy fuels, very difficult topography to work in. We did conduct a firing operation a few days ago along 89 that is holding and keeping any fire moving west. And we are in the process of we had a lot of spots. We've had slop overs as it's moved south and east. And we'd rather have it move if we had to move it anywhere. And we're able to be picking those up, and we're constantly being vigilant about that spotting. Fire into the park continues. However, that is going along the lines of our plans as far as our control lines within the park. We are having successes there and continue to work with our strategy there. Up in what's now Quebec and the Romeo area, we have our primary and secondary control lines in play. And there's a heavy mop-up going on. We have had some spotting and slop-overs that have occurred over the past few days. Our crews have been vigilant about picking those up and taking care of those issues, so that continues. Tango, the same story there. That's just been a constant battle. Again, just a testament to the fire conditions, the dry fuels that we've been facing. Even though we have very good extinguishment and mop-up, we are still getting those little breakouts here and there. And then back down to uniform, where again we've sealed off that burn operation from a couple of days ago that provides further protection for the peninsula. The weather today, as I said, that we have more clear air, is the first day that we've been able to fly in a long time our fixed wing aircraft to drop retardant. That was based on our actions here in Janesville. We utilized those aircraft, with all the numerous fires throughout the state and those limited resources, fixed wing, they've had to allocate those. So when we have been allocated those resources, we've made best use of them the best we can. We felt that the Janesville area was the most conducive place with the type of fuels and with the structures and so forth, that was the best tool. So we flew those there. However, on the other parts of the fire, we utilized our helicopters or rotor aircraft to conduct the operations there to achieve our objectives and meet the mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Our next speaker will be Lassen County Sheriff Dean Brown.
All right, good evening, everyone. I want to start off by apologizing for not being here the last couple nights. As everyone knows, the last couple nights have been very busy. We've been on an all-call status, helping to keep people safe in the Janesville, Milford areas, just tied up out in that direction, and as the operations chief says, the fire in the Janesville area has repeatedly burned across Highway 395, and that's what happened to me last night. I was down in Milford. The fire burned across the highway, just wasn't able to make it back here for a period of time due to that. But I know people want information. I'm happy to be here today and happy to be able to give you an update from our perspective. So I want to discuss orders first. Obviously, Westwood, Pinetown, Clear Creek remain under an order. We do have a plan written to reduce that from an evacuation order to an evacuation warning, which would allow people the option to return home if they chose to. We looked at potentially employing that today or making that change today, but based on the activity on the south side of Highway 36 and the Hamilton Mountain Fredonia Pass area, determined that it wasn't comfortable moving forward with that. So that was put on hold, but we do have it. We're going to look at that as an option, each day based on fire activity. But again, the top priority is keeping the public safe. And then this area west of Susanville, basically from Willard Hill down to the city limits, is still on an evacuation order. Based on we review all those orders each day, and based on the current activity, we'll be evaluating that tomorrow. Obviously, the wind's blowing the opposite direction today, and that's likely to happen for a few days, and it's likely to change again. But all those things will go into consideration when we reevaluate those areas tomorrow morning that may appear to be, and for the time being, appear to be in less danger. But we'll give those consideration tomorrow and following days. The primary area of concern right now is at Bass Hill to County Road 826 on the west side of Highway 395. And that's that primary. That's all that Janesville, Milford country where the fire has been so active and we've had to do those mandatory evacuation orders. And then we do have an order from A3 to Flux Road on the east side of Highway 395. The fire did, like I said, it's burned across the highway multiple times, and that's an area we'll be looking at again tomorrow morning to see if it's safe to repopulate. Just a word on Highway 395, Highway 44, and Highway 36. I want everyone should be paying attention. If you're traveling in or out of the area, pay attention to the Caltrans, the website, and road status, because those can change at any point in time based on fire activity. And as you've heard already, we've lost some structures and a number of homes in Lassen County. And obviously, even the loss of one home is too many. I feel for all those that have lost their homes. And I promise you that I'll do everything I can to help you, get shelter. I know Sheriff Johns from Plumas County and I met with Director Gillarducci in Greenville about a week ago. We told him that was our top priority for our communities. Obviously the top priority is getting the fire under control and protecting everybody else, but we have great concern for those people who lost their homes. This is a regional disaster in that regard. We have very little. We have a housing shortage already, And there are particular challenges in sheltering people in our region due to the harsh winters and so on. So I'm telling you, I'm going to do the best I can to help all of you out. There are damage assessment teams, a state team associated with the incident command team. They ordered up a team to do those assessments, and Lassen County Planning Department has been out doing those also. As far as animals are concerned, we are still, in Westwood, we're still feeding the animals that we've received requests for or ones we come across. A number of those animals, when the fire was getting close to Westwood, we moved to the shelter. Been in contact with the owners, and the owners can go pick those up anytime if they choose to, but we will keep them safe for you, or the Lassen County Animal Shelter is keeping them safe for you while they have them. The Janesville, Milford area, with those new evacuation orders, we're getting a number of calls, and that's what we're there for you. We want to help you out with your animals. We've moved some horses out, moved some dogs out. We're feeding some animals in place, but with the changes in fire activity, my preference is to get those animals out of there. So if you need us to help you, or you need to get animals out that are in those evacuation order areas, please call the sheriff's office and we will help you with that. Right now, so law enforcement personnel, we have a number of personnel in our county helping us. We have law enforcement from the Forest Service, BLM Rangers, California Highway Patrol, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, Alameda County Sheriff's Office, San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, and the Petaluma Police Department. And I just want everyone to know that, if we have to change, and add additional warnings and orders, and those people knock on your door, they're doing it, at my direction and for me. So treat it as if I'm the one knocking on your door. And if you get those orders, I ask that you comply with them. It does cause a hardship when we have people in those mandatory evacuation areas. It really interferes with the activities of my personnel. It causes us to repeatedly place our deputies and officers in danger to try to convince people repeatedly to leave because we don't want people to be harmed, and it can cause issues for the fire personnel. So if you get an order, please leave the area. A couple more quick things. Obviously Janesville and Milford have seen a lot of activity the last 2 nights, and there's been a lot of courageous work by law enforcement and the fire personnel. When that spot fire started in Janesville, it moved rapidly through the community. We were prepared. We put a ton of effort into bringing, briefing up our personnel, briefing up all the agencies that came in to provide us assistance. They all had packets with maps. They all had a local law enforcement officer providing leadership for these squads. And when the time came and we had to do those evacuations in a hasty fashion, our people did an outstanding job at getting people to safety. And then my observations over the last couple of days with the fire personnel, they're doing everything they can to save those homes. That first night it burned into Janesville, my perspective was that we lost far more homes than we did. But when I was able to see it in daylight,
good evening, everybody.
See that so many were standing. That's based on that hard work of the firefighters working to protect your homes, and I appreciate that. So with that said, I ask that everybody be patient. This is something like we haven't experienced before, and we have to work together and support each other through this. And may God bless you and keep you safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next, we'd like to introduce a video from Plumas National Forest Supervisor, Chris Carlton.
Good evening, everybody. Chris Carlton, Forest Supervisor here in the Plumas National Forest. Want to start by mentioning why I'm here on the West Zone briefing, and it's because this really is one fire and one fight for all of us. And as we continue to work at doing better on integrating all of our communications and making sure that we're all reaching out, we're going to start combining some of these messages and making sure that you're hearing from everybody involved. So as the Plumas Forest Supervisor, just wanted to recognize that we are yet again our Plumas and Lassen neighbors here united by a common challenge and a common fire. And just appreciate the challenges that the communities in Lassen County are going through right now, along with the communities in Plumas County. This really is a shared experience for all of us. We see the evacuations crossing lines. We see our firefighters crossing lines. It's really about what happens on the ground and how we get around this fire together, and continue to appreciate the hard work that all of the firefighters and first responders are putting in there. A lot of them may be our family, friends, and neighbors as well. So just thanks to them for all the work they're doing, and everyone stay safe and have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Federal Agency Representative Jay Lusher.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for their patience. As folks are able to go home and travel some of the roadways, we want to remind everyone that our federal lands in and around the fire area are closed. This is to help protect our firefighters and that they don't get distracted from other people that are in the area. Many days of walking around, the last 2 days walking around camp, have heard many stories of the fire history in the 395 corridor. There's a lot of firefighters that are here that have been on fires there. They're using their experience to respond appropriately and try and protect everyone's home in that area. There's also been an outpouring of support for Lassen National Park. It's a special place to many people. It's an economic driver for the area, and we're doing everything we can to protect the values that are there that make it special to everyone. We're made sure to protect the visitor center and are holding the road on the 89 corridor. Our crews are working very hard, some more arriving tomorrow, to continue to work and put line through the park and help prevent this fire from moving much farther. With that, thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce representing our Unified Incident Command, Jeff Bellier.
Good evening. As you've heard from our operations section chief, our incident meteorologist, and our fire behavior analyst, this fire continues to be a challenge. The fire, as you heard earlier, is just over 660,000 acres. To put that in perspective, that is over 1,000 square miles that we are using our firefighting resources in 3 operational theaters to battle and try to contain this fire. The western side of the fire continues to be a challenge. The weather conditions have pushed the fire further to the east. However, we remain successful in keeping the fire out of the Mill Creek drainage. The fire currently is impacting the Wilson Lake area and Feather River Meadows. Moving to the middle of the fire, as you heard, the Hamilton Mountain area remains another critical focus for us as we try to continue to work on containment lines and stop the westward spread of the fire towards the community of Westwood. Moving to the eastern side of the fire, that area, as you may recall 2 nights ago when Chief C gave the briefing, experienced very critical winds and extreme fire behavior. Fire behavior that many of our firefighters, many of our seasoned and veteran firefighters have yet to see in their careers that have spanned many decades. Our firefighters went out there, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it was a bare-knuckle fight to keep and protect as many structures as we did. The firefighters had been working long hours and braved those extreme fire conditions to save your property the best they could. But we haven't given up in that area either. As the fire continues to spread southward and back up towards the escarpment, we're doing everything we can to slow or halt the spread of the fire. Today's weather conditions, while it brought us challenges in several areas of the fire, it also gave us the opportunity to use our firefighting aerial resources to help give our firefighters on the ground some help. We use a lot of our fixed-wing air tankers dropping retardant on the eastern side of the fire between Janesville and Milford. Over in the middle part of the fire, we use a lot of our helicopters with water-dropping missions to help slow the spread towards the community of Westwood and along Hamilton Mountain. When you have a fire this size, we still have challenges in many areas, as I said. However, today we also were able to start to resume a level of normalcy for some of the residents along the Lake Almador and Chester areas. Those residents that are been allowed to repopulate their homes, welcome. I do ask, though, that you be cognizant. These fuels and this fire has been extremely stubborn. If you see smoke, call and report it so that we can get our firefighters that continually patrol that area to come out and help put those hot spots out. Also, for the residents as you come home, please be mindful of the roadways. You're sharing the roadways with large firefighting apparatus and at times with limited visibility. Please help us to continue to help you by driving safely on the road and allowing extra time if you need to go somewhere, and being mindful of the large fire apparatus that could be traveling through the area. We've had several questions that came in during this broadcast. My intent is to try to answer them for you. The first one is, as I stated earlier, the fire has not entered into the Mill Creek drainage yet. We've been battling that area for the last several days with ground resources, bulldozers, hand crews, fire engines, and helicopters. The fire has not entered the Mill Creek drainage and currently is burning to the east, away from the Mill Creek drainage. We'll continue to make that one of the top priorities to keep the fire out of that drainage. As I said earlier, the fire is currently burning in the Feather River Meadows and Wilson Lake area. I realize there are a number of recreational cabins in that area, and at this point I can't tell you their status. Our firefighters are still fully engaged in there, and just recently the smoke layer laid down and has resulted in limited visibility. As soon as we get increased visibility and the fire becomes safer, we will have our damage inspection teams to come in and start to inspect that area. But as of right now, the status of those buildings is unknown. You also heard, I'm sure many of you have seen, whether it's through social media, the news, that we have numerous large fires burning concurrently in California. While the Dixie Fire, unfortunately, is the largest fire in the state, we have other fires that are burning in very critical areas as well. So as part of the statewide master mutual aid system, we have to be able to reassign resources as needed to help our partners and fellow community members throughout the state in their time of need. So we've had to share some of our firefighting resources with those other fires so that they can also help to start to build containment. When we do that, we ensure that we still remain staffed adequately to be able to address the needs of the incident here in Lassen, Plumas, Butte, and Tehama counties. As you also heard from our operations section chief, Mark Brunton, we're using a surge concept with our resources. So as we have higher priorities or more threats to critical infrastructure, we are surging our resources from other parts of the fire to help contain that immediate threat. And with that, I thank you all for your time, and thank you for tuning in tonight.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your time. Next, I'd like to introduce up Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton to handle a couple more questions at the map. Chief, we've received several questions about the area of Mineral, as well as conditions on Milford Gray Road. If you can cover that first, please.
Okay, so we'll start with Milford. Milford is off of 395 community. It's adjacent to the community of Janesville. So the initial impact that took place from the spot fire the other day and the erratic fire behavior that we experienced that burned to 395 and across 395 did result in some loss of structures, a number of outbuildings and so forth. Our damage inspectors are evaluating that still as to how many and the extent. And then the incursion of the fire over the past 2 days down the 395 corridor. So we've been able to engage in active structure defense, bump and run tactics, and fire front following tactics regarding the structure defense. We've had great success with the defense of those structures and protection of the structures. And again, there have been a few that have been lost, and those are being assessed at this time. The community of Milford itself has not received an impact of fire that has taken structures to this point. We've been able to surge our resources, as was stated earlier, to provide a level of protection and the structure protection for those areas, which was still going on as we speak. So as this fire is moving and slowly moving its way down the escarpment, we have active firefighting involved in that area and structure defense, and that'll continue to do so until we can find a way to cut it off. We had some help with the air tankers today, but when we're dealing with a fire that's on top of an escarpment, moving along the escarpment, and then down once it gets on the 395 corridor with the various wind conditions that exist there, we're able to take advantage of it the best we can. And then sometimes some of it we've allowed to go across when it's been safe to do so. That just burns out into the dry lake bed. So we're taking advantage of every opportunity, the fuels, the topography, and then the resource we have available to do so. And we have surged a lot of resources in. We have a 3-stage surge plan, and part of that is also bringing in the resources that are on their down hours for rest to wake them up and bring them out back to the firefight. So we are having resources that are working 48, almost 36, 36, 48 hours, even up to 72 hours straight on the fire line, just so we could surge these resources and protect those infrastructure. Moving on to mineral, which we're over back in our Lassen sector. There has not been any, from my knowledge, structures that have been destroyed. From that, there is active fire in that general area. We have the evacuations in play in those areas. However, we have been able to keep the fire to the east of Highway 89. And the spread that has taken place, Morgan Camp and the Childs Meadows, that is where the fire has slopped and spotted, and we have resources actively engaged in firefighting, as well as just recently on Doe Ridge, and they're actively in suppression activities within that. But as far as any destroyed structures, there have none that have come to our attention or that we are aware of at this point in time.
Thank you, Chief. The other part question we have is for the Cheney Creek Road and Hobo Camp area.
Right. So Cheney Creek, Hobo Camp. So where you see right here, it's in our Duffy group. There were 2 major drainages that run right into the community, Susanville, and they've been on our forefront for our plans throughout. When we knew that we were going to have a spread of fire into the direction towards Susanville, it was imperative that we kept the fire out of both those drainages, the Cheney drainage and then the Susanville drainage. So we established this Dovey group, and we filled it full of a variety of resources to build direct line as best we could, contingency line, and to open up the lines that were utilized to protect the community from the hog fire a year ago, which this team happened to be managing. So very familiar with that area, and also with the local knowledge of from the Lassen Modoc unit, CAL FIRE, we were able to utilize these control lines, and we've been able to successfully keep it out of the drainages. There have been a little bit into the Cheney Creek drainage, but with the fire conditions that were lessening, the fact that we did not have the heavy winds, we were able to rally our resources and go direct on that and keep it from being established in the drainages, and therefore keeping it from spreading in. And that is continuing throughout the day today. And then that we've been able to pick all that up. And then with the firing operation along 36, it'll also keep that out of the drainages and keep the incursion of fire when the winds shift, that keep it from crossing Highway 36.
Chief, I'm going to keep you up there for one more question. We've received a lot of questions about the Silver Lake area and the cabins there.
Yeah, so the Silver Lake area, it's looking good. We've been able to do active structure defense there. Believe there may have been some loss, but for the most part, we're able to protect and defend and save most all the structures throughout that. That was early on, a number of days ago. The fire activity was not as intense, so we were able to mitigate that issue, and we I know that there are a number of structures still standing in that particular area.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. Next, I'd like to bring up our federal agency representative, Jay Lusher, to answer another question.
So we've had a question about how much damage has occurred in the Caribou Wilderness and the Lassen Wilderness within the national park. The fire has burned with great intensity in some areas and moderate intensity in others. It's normal to have a mosaic burn pattern across a landscape like this. It has been very difficult due to the drought conditions. We don't know the exact extent to what the fire has done in the area, but after the fire is complete, we will use burned area emergency response tools to look at the severity of the fire, evaluate what tools might be used to implement and protect future values. Thanks.
Thank you. And to answer one final question this evening, I'd like to introduce Lassen County Sheriff Groudon.
Thank you. So the question was about road status, specific or highway status specific to Highway 32 down to Chico. So just so everyone understands, your best information comes from Caltrans and the California Highway Patrol. I would check with the Caltrans website. They update those restrictions or changes as they occur. And just so everyone understands also that there are California Highway Patrolmen personnel tied to the team. They work with the team each day. So as things adapt and change, they can keep their officers informed. They can shift their officers around depending on what has to be done. So they are integral with this operation. Those decisions related to highway closures are not made lightly, and they're done in partnership with the members of the team. But right now, Highway 32, I did reach out to that officer that's been assigned to the team. He said Highway 32 is currently open. The question was specific to people from Chester, if they could travel to Chico on Highway 32, and he told me that it is open. But I'm not the best source for highway information. The best source is California Highway Patrol and Caltrans. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening for the broadcast. Our next scheduled incident briefing will be Friday, August 20th at 7 p.m. It will be streamed live here on Facebook, Lassen Modoc's page, as well as on YouTube. With that, I'd like to say thank you, good night, and be safe.